What's up, guys? I'm Laura from Reading in Bed, and yes, I'm back in front of the good bookshelves because my husband finally moved his drums. And today I'm coming at you with the first of probably only two updates from Novellas in November. Now, Rick has already done his first update. He's planning to do three. He's certainly a more prolific participant, so I'll link to him. I'll link to Sean the Book Maniac. I think there's a few other booktubers taking part in Novellas in November, and there's certainly quite a few book bloggers because that's sort of where the whole thing originated. So I'll just try to put a whole bunch of links down below so you can check out the various participants. And if you want to see what I thought of my first 5 books, but you don't want to listen to my dulcet tones or look at my face, then I have also posted this on my blog a couple days ago. So you can read it there if you're in a hurry. So I'm just going to go through the first 5 that I've read. The first of those is Split Tooth by Tanya Tagaq, and this wasn't part of my TBR because Goodreads says this has 208 pages, but it does not. It has 180 some. Now, it's back at the library, or I would confirm that and I would hold it up and all that. That's the other good thing about posting on the blog is I know how to insert pictures. Maybe I'll try to figure it out for this one because with one exception, all these books are back at the library. Anyways, I'm off track. It really only has 180 some pages, and at least 10 of those are like full page illustrations. Several others are sort of half blank because they're filled with poetry. So this really, it's not really a novel, and so you can't, technically it's probably not really a novella. It's a bit of a mixture of things, of poetry and illustration and memoir and fantasy and all sorts of stuff, but it's really good. Sean the Book Maniac is also reading this. I don't think he's counting it as a novella, but he is listening to the audiobook and reading along, which he highly recommends. And if you know anything about Tanya Tagaq, it's kind of obvious why. She's very well known in Canada for being a throat singer. So throat singing is an Inuit kind of traditional style of singing, and if you haven't heard it, I am not going to be the one to explain it to you. I would just Google it, Google her name. It's, when you first hear it, it's very jarring. It's sort of unlike anything most of us have ever heard, but it's also very powerful, very emotional. And so I believe in the audiobook, she intersperses the actual text with some throat singing. So I'm now on hold with the audiobook as well. But yeah, this is very non-traditional. It's a bit difficult to know how to take. It's somewhat like The White Book by Han Kang. I think I compared it to a few other things on the blog, but I would recommend it, definitely. If you're into non-traditional narratives and you can handle that, then yes, I would definitely recommend it. And it is a novella, kind of. Next, I read The Guest Cat by Takashi Haredi. So this is translated from the Japanese, back at the library, but it's got a really cute, distinctive cover with some cat eyes. I think the UK cover is even a little cuter than the US one, and it really made the rounds on BookTube and book blogs a couple years ago, maybe, I want to say last year. And I remember seeing really mixed reviews and people saying, well, there's not much of a story there, it's not very, there's not much to it. So I took that to mean it was going to be some sort of feel-good story about, a cat that comes to town and wins everyone's hearts. And I guess it kind of is, but it's actually a lot sadder and a lot deeper than that. It's about an unnamed narrator who's kind of stuck in a rut, feels like life is passing him by. And this cat, the neighbor's cat, starts visiting him, hence the guest cat. And the cat quickly becomes the center of his life and his household. And then, this being a book about animals, something happens to the cat, and then it's him dealing with the aftermath of that. And though this is a character living in late 80s, early 90s Tokyo, in which there seems to be some sort of real estate bubble, and he can't afford to buy in, there is something pretty universal, I would say, about sort of that midlife crisis, sort of, and about feeling like life is passing you by when you're living in a big city and you don't really feel like you're fully participating. So yeah, it was really sad. Maybe it's because we lost a cat in our family this year, but this book snuck up on me. I didn't think it was that emotional until all of a sudden it was, and it did make me cry. Next was Mirror Shoulder Signal by Dorte Noors. also back at the library. I do still have her novella collection. There's 2 of them in here. So much for that winter that I hope to get to. This doesn't have a ton of holds on it, so I can sort of keep it for longer. Mirror Shoulder Signal, I waited for months and it had lots more holds, so I took it back as soon as I was done. It's another kind of midlife novel. The character is learning how to drive. That's sort of the whole, like, the center of the novel. And, you know, speaking of stories without a lot of plot, this one, like, really doesn't have plot, like, at all. So if you can't handle that, do not go anywhere near this book. But if you can appreciate a book for being a character study, for being, I don't know, like, more about concepts than the story, but also, like, really funny. Like, there's some very sad moments, but there's some very hilarious moments as well. Then I would highly, highly recommend this. I gave it 5 stars. You know, new favorite author. She wrote an essay for LitHub, I think earlier this year, last year, about the invisibility of middle age, particularly when it comes to women. And that's kind of what this book is about too. So, you know, as I'm rapidly getting towards that stage of life, or maybe already in it, yeah, it was resonating. And like I say, just really funny, really sad. Those are like the 2 emotions that I always want to see in a book. So I really love this one and hope to get to her other novellas soon. Then I read the one book I can actually hold up for you. I'm Afraid of Men by Vivek Shraya. So this is, I guess what they're calling either a book-length essay or a single essay book, single essay nonfiction. A recent really popular example of that would be We Should All Be Feminists. Another kind of classic example is one that I'm reading right now for Novellas in November, The Fire Next Time by James Baldwin. So really this is an essay. It's not a novel. It's not like a full study of something. It is an essay. I tried to do a approximate word count. I would say this is coming in somewhere around 15,000 words. It's like 80 some pages, and they're small. It's a very small hardcover book. And so, well, I guess just to get it out of the way, this book really didn't work for me, despite the fact that I've really loved most of Shraya's previous work. This one just didn't quite work for me in the same way, and I'm sort of like, this whole book-length essay thing sort of makes sense to me when the essay is already made an impact or is already culturally significant. For example, with We Should All Be Feminists, it was based on an already successful TED Talk that the author had done. Or with The Fire Next Time, it had already been published, I believe in the New Yorker, had already made an impact. So it sort of made sense to package those in a way that was going to be longer lasting. You know, particularly back in the 60s, like a magazine article, once it's gone, it's gone. Like, there wasn't the online version. And I mean, a TED Talk, I guess, is a little more permanent, but you never know, right? Like, YouTube may not be here in a couple years, whereas once it's bound into a book, then you can be a little more certain that it's gonna be around for, you know, future generations and all that. But with this one, this is like an original piece, as far as I know. So, you know, I can't really say what kind of impact this essay will have, but I think upon it being published, it hasn't had that yet, just because it wasn't out in the world. So to me, that's a little weird, I guess, to put out a book in that fashion and to charge like $15 for it. But at the same time, I mean, I paid $15 for it, and if you can do that, if you can successfully package and market, which I think, you know, like, it's got a very striking Instagrammable cover. It's, you know, the end papers are this really nice purple. Like, if that's working for you and people, including myself, will pay it, then, like, that's fine. I don't have a problem with it. I'm just sort of, yeah, I guess I'm kind of questioning it a little bit, but yeah, you know, if things like toxic masculinity and gender nonconformity and transgender issues and stuff are something you're interested in, it's worth reading. It just didn't quite speak to me the same way some of her previous work has. Okay, and lastly, speaking of very small hardcovers, I read The Embassy of Cambodia by Zadie Smith. So this is fiction, but it's sort of in the same vein as this one and the others I talked about. And like the other 2 examples I gave, this was a short story that was published in the New Yorker. I don't know how much of an impact it had as a short story in the New Yorker, but I do know that the hardcover version, which is 69 pages long, came out in December of 2013. So I'm thinking the publisher was just trying to get on some, Christmas gift lists, and they probably did. They gave it a very striking cover, published it right before Christmas. And, same as I say about the Shreya, like, if you can do it, if people are going to pay it, then, go for it. But, does the Embassy of Cambodia need to be a standalone hardcover book? Probably not. I really liked it. I love the story. It's great. It's Zadie Smith. She's writing about the immigrant experience, and she's writing about Northwest London. You're not going to go wrong with that. It's really good. The story itself is available online, so I'll link to it. I would suggest you sit down for 45 minutes and give it a read. It's really excellent. But unless you're a completist or shopping for a gift, I don't know. Looks like it retails for $12, which isn't too bad, but yeah. So those are the 5 that I have read so far. Like I said, I'm reading The Fire next time, and also reading Notes from the Underground. Both of those are like really heavy, so I'm kind of slow going. I don't know that I'll have 5 to talk about the next time I do an update, but I will check in. Thank you for watching, and please check out everyone else who is doing novellas in November.